Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
We've talked about this quite some time now, but I'm curious to know because the deadline is like what? The TPUSA event, isn't it like today or like
it's today? 17th? It's the 15th. It was supposed to take place.
It's today.
I don't know if you heard or not that
I may be on the late train.
Well, no, nothing happened publicly, but there were rumblings about Candace Owens and Erica Kirk having an offline private conversation to air
I did hear that.
their grievances. Yeah. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, it is supposed to happen today if it hasn't already. And I hope that they do get together. I have a couple of reasons why I hope that, but what are your thoughts about what's going on? You know, you had Erica Kirk at the town hall on CBS, and you've heard different people interview her, and people react to how she's portraying herself and how she's positioning herself individually, and also how she's interacting with TPUSA organizationally. What's the latest on your mind about that whole saga?
So this is something that's really been captivating for me, just in the background or the sidelines for me. And I don't really like to form an opinion based on my gut emotion reaction. Like, the cliche, sleep on it. Mm-hmm. It really is a cliche, but it really is truth, because for some reason things happen when you sleep on it. Right. But, I don't normally like to form an opinion about something until I've actually really like felt it unemotionally and seen it. And I guess I'm just more in a season of my life where I don't really believe words as much as I believe just actions or what people's faces say and what people's actions do, which I think I find so far more rewarding when you're having a conversation or just interacting, rather than just being being at a high function language wise, meaning a very eloquent speak or very eloquent words. Because to me, it's like, I love that. I love language, but you got to really pay attention to people's faces, right? And their expressions and their actions. And that's really what gives a lot of truth to what people are saying and what they believe. But you and I have talked about this. We've talked about this offline. We've discussed it. And to me, it just seems weird. And at the beginning, I'm just like, dude, there's just something weird about TPUSA now. There's just something weird about how they handled everything. It's just weird. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know, but it just is weird. You just get that weird feeling. You just kind of sit back and you just kind of watch. And anyway, let me see how things go. Let's see how this goes out. And to me, the whole rollout of how everything happened with them and how scripted it was and how rehearsed feeling it was. And then how Erica just ascended so fast and just so whoop, right? Like just like a CEO retiring and the new CEO coming in. It just was very bizarre the way it all went down. And now to see Candace jump on it like the way she has, and all the allegations that are out there, and hearing them and watching the way TPUSA has responded, how they've postured, and then seeing that and not really paying attention to it at all on social media, just listening to them, you see a lot of people now that are like, there was this one I was watching the other day, and I don't want to smile or laugh about it, but where it's like, watch Erica Kirk's face change during this interview, or watch her when asked a question about, the allegations of that Candace is making. And she just goes from that normal smile that she has to just all of a sudden, bam, like red zone. You're like, why would you react that way? Why would you react in such a non-controlled, rather this, why would that be your response? Right? Why wouldn't you just have a clean, intellectual, solid, concrete, stoic response? Because that's the character, or that's the narrative, or whatever you want to describe, that they are just saying they're coming from, right? TPUSA is saying we're stoic. Erica saying we're stoic. Everyone's saying we're stoic, we're button up, we're tight, because that was Charlie's position all the time, right? But then you look at that and you go, why did you get such a reaction? Why didn't you just get a clean, intellectual, logical, pragmatic response based on your merits and your morals and your ethics and your values, right? Why get this emotional reaction to, and I think it was on like CNN or Fox or something like that. I can't remember. I think it was Fox. I think she was getting interviewed on Fox.
She was being interviewed by, it was a Fox.
So you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying. Why such an erratic emotional response reaction to, instead of a clean, simple, easy, pragmatic reply? Mm-hmm. Why this way? So, there you go. And she's not a hard interviewer. And Fox
Especially
is friendly
not with
to
Erica. Yeah,
and, sure. And Fox is friendly territory. That's like the home court advantage right there.
Yeah.
So to me, it just seems like weird. And it doesn't, let me tell you this, I just don't trust it.
Okay.
You just don't trust it. It's very sour to me, and it almost looks too scripted and too rehearsed and just too much there. And I get we got to go on and soldier on, but I don't know how I would respond in that type of situation. I don't, because I'm not in that type of situation. But I do know for sure that I would be very different than where I am right now. Mm-hmm. And I would be like, cool, I get there's stuff in the shadows and we can't say, right, Len? But to me, it's like, look, if you come to me, Len, and you're saying, hey, so-and-so said this about you, Chris, I'd say, stop, hold on a second, wait, hold on, mm-hmm. Hold on, wait, Len, hold on. Let's get so-and-so in the room, or let's get so-and-so on the phone. So all three of us are in on this, because I want to know their response and their reaction to your allegations at the same time, real time, mm-hmm. as you accusing it, because it's the only way I'm ever going to get 100% the real deal, the real story, and not some type of one-sided response or reply. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's very strange. And if they were them, I'd call it all out and say, all right, let's do it all right now. No restrictions. Why can't we have her on a live stream? Why do they want her to be live? And if I was Candace, I wouldn't be doing it live anyways. Because I don't trust them. I don't want to say what I want to say, but you probably understand what I'm about to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. And, first, I think it's always, it should go without saying that our condolences, of course, goes out to a widow who lost her husband, and husband whose children will grow up without their biological father, whose life was cut short at the age of 31. That goes without saying. It should, at least. What's weird about everything, Chris, is that the types of the response, because, there are people around me that are close that have lost people unexpectedly, and the way they interact in public and the way they mourn and the process they use to mourn, there's similar patterns, different. Some people, move forward without crying, and other people, crumble and they just can't function. But what's common amongst them is that there is a very visceral mourning period that takes place. And when I look at TPUSA, I just look at how they just decided to just come out and do this world tour so quickly. And then you had people that, he's irreplaceable. So you have other people that are trying to fill that gap, but there's a big, gigantic vacuum in that organization. And not only that, all of the swirling accusations that have been going all about is troubling. For example, Tyler Robinson is in court, maybe even as we speak right now, and there are so many pieces of evidence that suggest that if he did it, that he definitely wasn't a lone actor. And there's more compelling evidence to suggest that he didn't do it. And so when you look at somebody that was a friend of her husband, now I'm talking about Erica and Candace specifically. Candace was a friend of her husband's. They were business partners. They traveled around different parts of the world together. They text back and forth with each other. And They knew each other before he even met his wife. So they have a long-standing relationship. So if my spouse's good friend and business partner was turning over every stone to find out who killed my spouse, I would not in any way view that person as an adversary. I would not in any way tell people that are trying to get me to condemn that person to do it, because my spouse has been assassinated publicly, and somebody saying, I will not stop at anything, I won't rest until we find out the person's killer. That's my best friend, not my enemy, not my adversary. So that's very weird. Now, as I've mentioned before, and I'll probably say it again, there have been, the way in which Candace has gone about it and some of the things that she said in the past hasn't always been something that I've aligned with, both personally, politically, philosophically, and all of that. But as it relates to this case specifically, while she may be talking about clandestine operations and Egyptian operations and the French and Mossad and all of these other things, I don't see that as a problem. I look at it as a stone that needs to be turned over. And and I believe that she's perfectly rational, that if some evidence comes up to support that her claim is wrong, I think she would publicly say, look, I saw these flight logs. These flight logs turned out to be nothing. It's a big fat nothing burger. That's on me. But I did find this out, and this led to the conviction of Charlie's assassin. All of those other allegations were worth it. And for TPUSA to, one, set an impossible deadline for them to converse on live, either in person or via live stream, and to set out this tweet at midnight to call for her to respond within 24 hours. All of these things are suggesting that something's off, because that's not normal. When somebody's trying to investigate your boss, your husband, your great friend, they're on my side. They're on the right team. We're all fighting for the same thing, but they don't seem to be fighting for that. And when you, as an organization, TPUSA, fights to say, we trust what's going on with the FBI, when it's led by a person who doesn't have the credentials to effectively lead an investigation, there's some problems there. And I just think that it stinks. And lastly, I'll say this. We don't need to see things on air that don't need to be seen. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I think more important is that if Erica and Candace decide to get together to have a personal conversation offline, I'm all for that, because for me, anybody who's killed, whether it's the person who shot up Brown University the other day, that person needs to be brought to justice. Who assassinated Charlie Kirk, that person needs to be brought to justice. And I'm just about truth and justice, man. And however that needs to happen, doesn't have to be done publicly.
Yeah, I think it's, again, you're exactly right with that. Why is it so, why are they on the defensive? Why are they even defensive about this? The fact that you're defensive about something like this, it's just telling.
It's a red flag.
You shouldn't have to be. You shouldn't, right? You shouldn't have to be defensive about it. And you're right. I mean, you would think that there would be solidarity, but there isn't solidarity. Why is it such a mess? It should just be so cut and dry. Look, if Tyler Robinson was the man that did it, the guy who did it, whoever you want to call it, then it would be solid. It would be lock, stock, and barrel, right? Now, I do think still I'm in that camp where I'm like, yeah, he probably did it, and oh my gosh, this gets blown out. But again, it's a bias. It's a bias, right? Where it's like, eventually you're just like, okay, cool. I'm believing the narrative. I'm believing what you're saying. I'm believing what looks to be on the surface is that Tyler Robinson was, a child that was troubled in certain ways and grew up in a conservative family or whatever you want to call it, and became involved with, whatever groups you want to say what he was involved in. That was not of the norm. He was involved in alt fringe groups, right? And that was that. And he became frustrated and grabbed a rifle and exercised his agency that he had and shot a man in public, cold blood daylight, execution style, with a bolt action rifle. That in itself seems very simple and very easy to understand, because it is very simple and easy to understand. And you could sit there and go, okay, cool, this is what happened. Because in your heart, you would believe that that's the simplest way that it could happen. Now, I'm not saying that it's a good thing and it's a heartful thing, but that is the most believable thing, because who could plan this massive long-term 10, 15, 20-year conspiracy, right?
I agree. Sure.
It just seems so complicated.
So far-fetched. Yeah.
It's so far-fetched where it's like, nah. But then it's almost like we live in this world today where things just keep getting exposed, where you're just like, damn, the far-fetched shit that sounds fake really is real. And the simple stuff that should be real is fake. Because we're just being tricked. Because there is this bias that you have where when you like or you trust something, you're willing to excuse away the doubts. You're willing to excuse away the red flags until all of a sudden it just becomes so much that you just can't ignore it anymore. And I think a lot of people are at that point where they were in a position where I was maybe 2 or 3 months ago, where I was like, dude, Len, come on. It is what it is, dude. This is what happened, right? Where you're now going, wait a minute. Like, why is it so weird then?
Yeah,
why is it so weird? It's just,
so
why is it
many
so
weird situations and pieces of evidence that just don't make sense. A guy coming up and confessing that he did it just to act as a diversion.
And the guy has a history of doing that too?
Yeah, he was at the Boston Marathon. Like, what is that? And then the flash bang that you see from another place, and just the way in which the entry wound happened. And if it was a 30-06, it would have pretty much blown his head off. So, and then, the weird movements from the security officer next to him, then them coming and removing the camera, them sweeping out the crime scene. Like, you can go on and on and on about different weird occurrences at that singular event that just points to the fact that there's some type of cover up. I'm totally open to any possibility. Again, my goal and my only outcome is to find out the truth. Don't sweep some fake lie under the rug. Turn every stone, ask every question, and then let the truth, set you free. And that's really what it is, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Absolutely. Len, as always, phenomenal conversation. And again, we'll see how things wrap up here for the rest of the year, and how things go. And again, subscribe if you like the content. We'd love to hear from you as well. Len, any last final thoughts before we close out?
Just continue to be open to what truth actually is. Don't live in echo chambers. So with that being said, take care, everybody. Till next time.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.